Thanks for tuning in for another episode of On the Air with Eric Thompson. I am your host, Eric Thompson, and we are presently waiting for a call from Michael Norris. He is a survivor of abuse by a priest, and this all kind of ties into a kind of a gloomy subject that's kind of relevant now from exactly where I'm sitting. As I look out this window, I see the Sacred Heart Catholic Church, and as I look out this window, I see the Montgomery County Courthouse. And there is a gentleman, I guess gentleman strong, I would say a defrocked priest who has been accused of molesting people, his own kids included, but we're going to flesh out the story. Anyway, on Thursday, the 10th of January, he is due to be in court. And we've had a predator living here amongst us, and it's kind of disturbing. I wanted to jump some of my early shows off with some happier information. Hey, I think this is Michael calling now. Let's hop on. Let's see. Let's hit. Hi, this is Eric.
Eric, this is Michael Norris.
Oh, thank you for calling, sir. I certainly appreciate that. Okay, so I really appreciate that. We talked yesterday, and I had a little bit of technical difficulty late in the interview, and I got an unbelievable hum that was not going to be denied. So thanks for calling me back and giving me a second shot at this.
No problem.
Okay. So thank you for calling On the Air with Eric Thompson. Who I have on the air today is Michael Norris of SNAP. And Michael, can you tell me what that acronym stands for, and a little bit about your organization and where you guys could be contacted?
The acronym stands for Survivors Network of Those Abused by Priests. We're an organization that has been in place for about 30 years. We're an advocacy group for those for survivors of sexual abuse, particularly by the clergy. And so not only are we an advocacy group, we also are a support group. So we basically have some support organizations set up and some support groups that allow survivors to get together and talk about what's their issues, and it's kind of part of the healing process. It's modeled after Alcoholics Anonymous, and so it's all about you telling your story, you hearing other stories, and that kind of helps you heal.
Michael, how long have you been involved with that group?
I have been involved in SNAP on and off since 2002 time frame.
Quite a long time.
Yeah, and so I've been the leader here in Houston since 2014, and I'm also on the national board.
Okay, real quick, if someone out there has, as they listen to this program, and they either identify with this abuse on a personal level, or maybe they know someone else who they suspect, how can they contact your organization?
They can. We have a website. It's snapnetwork.org. And you can find my contact information on there. You can email me at snapmdnorris@hotmail.com, or you can reach me via phone at 713-855-9178. We're here to help. We help people work their way through the journey of trying to heal from sexual abuse. So I work with quite a few people and try to help them get through the other side.
Gotcha, Michael. So as what has brought you and I to be on the telephone together is a case that is making a little bit of news here in Montgomery County. There was just for a little context and background, there was a priest who at some point actually served at Sacred Heart, which is right down the street from me, for some time. Yes. And then served some other places, and there have been some allegations to the point that he is, the grand jury saw they've arrested him, he'd made bail and all that kind of thing. But can you tell us a little bit what you know about this priest named, and tell me if I'm wrong, Manuel La Rosa? No, Manuel Rosa Lopez?
Manuel La Rosa Lopez.
Gotcha.
And he was at Sacred Heart there, right there in CONROE, back in the early 2000s. His first reported sexual abuse was in 1992. There's a victim that has come forward since all this has come out. Church has known about it since then. He was just in the seminary at that point. He was still allowed to enter into the seminary, and
so let me, if I can, I pause. I just want to make sure. So you're saying that La Rosa, prior to actually being in the church, had some accusations of sexual abuse, and this is before he was even. This is before when he was training to be a priest.
Yes, there's someone who's accused him of sexually abusing them in 1992 at St. Thomas More, and and at that time in 1992, him and his guardian went to the church and told them about it. So the church has been aware of this since 1992, and they still allowed him to become a priest. He was ordained, I believe, in 1997. I believe. I'm not positive on that, but he was still allowed to enter into the seminary and become a priest.
So, and this is the 1992 allegation. This is with a boy who was what, in 5th or 6th grade?
Yes, he was a young boy at that point. I don't know the exact age, but yeah. So that's the first knowledge I know of someone that's how far back it goes.
Gotcha. Okay, and so please continue. This is
okay. Sure. In 2001, he was accused of abusing a young girl at Sacred Heart, and her parents found out about it and approached the priest, the pastor up there, the diocese, and complained about it. They were told that he would be removed, and he was subsequently removed from Sacred Heart. And I'm not sure where. I think he went to the Shalom Center at that point, which is a psychiatrist or a psychoanalysis place here in Houston for priests who have problems.
So when we talk about the Shalom Center, and I apologize if I keep interrupting, but this is very important stuff. So the Shalom Center, if I am correct, is a place that has basically misguided, is specifically for misguided priests.
Yes, and it's interesting because there's been several articles come out here recently about priests who have been there at the Shalom Center. There was recently one about a priest out of Missouri that had spent some time at the Shalom Center, and it was he had done some sexual misconduct and was at the Shalom Center to be healed. I guess is what they were trying to do. Okay. So yeah, it was run by the diocese, and it still is run by the diocese. And so it's there just for priests who are having issues.
Okay.
And so after that, the girl's family they left the country, and they were under the impression that she was under the impression that he was removed from the ministry.
So this is the lady that was at Sacred Heart, and that the accusation was made, and then they left the country and was under the impression that what?
That he was no longer a priest.
Okay.
Okay, and so she comes back into the country in 2010 and sees that he is at a parish, and so she's not very happy about that. So she goes down and meets with Donardo and Cardinal Donardo, who is the cardinal of the Houston Galveston Diocese, and also has a meeting with the Rosa Lopez at that point as well. She is told by Cardinal Donardo that there's no reason to go to the police because the statute of limitations has run out, and which she subsequently, as we now know, is not true. But she subsequently found that out. Okay, so she kind of left that meeting frustrated, didn't think anything else would happen. Well, then you fast forward to so at that point, Donardo still did not remove him from his ministry. He was still allowed to continue. Fast forward to June of last year. There was a victim who was abused in 1998 that finally decided, because a friend of his had tried to commit suicide, and he suspected that he was also abused by La Rosa Lopez. He finally decided, I need to do something about this. He was concerned that there were other children still being abused. He knew that this guy was still in ministry, so he contacted his local diocese, and they put him into contact with the diocese here in Houston. And that was June of last year. He was not able to meet with DiNardo until August 10th because he had some personal issues that took him out of the country. He was on vacation and that kind of thing. So he met with DiNardo on August 10th. During this whole period, okay, now this is the third accusation of this priest. During this whole period, no one was made aware in the diocese that he was at that this man had been accused. He was allowed unfettered access to children. So he was not removed from his ministry at this point. He met Cardinal DiNardo met with him on August 10th. According to the victim, based on what he told me, he was very dismissive of the accusation. Why didn't he come forward?
When you say he was very dismissive, is this the cardinal?
Cardinal DiNardo was, yes. Basically, asked questioning why he didn't come forward before. He told him that he was going to contact the police, and then he told him he would get back with him as far as the next step, which the next step was to go in front of the lay board, which is part of the Dallas Charter. He around August 20th or so, this victim contacted me and asked me my opinion. I told him that he needs to go to the police first of all.
Michael,
because
just for a second, I want to back you up because I know that a lot of this material is very familiar to you, but as a non-Catholic, some of these things I'm kind of learning about or just becoming aware of. So if I could back you up to the point where you said the victim who had been, this was a guy who had been molested at the St. Thomas School, is that correct? Who came?
No, this is the third victim. He was abused in 1998 at Sacred Heart.
Okay, so we have a third victim. This guy has come to the Cardinal, which is DiNardo. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he came to him. I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. A third victim, he was abused at Sacred Heart in 1998. He had a friend who he suspected was also abused by the Rosa Lopez, who tried to commit suicide.
Gotcha.
That was the point that he thought, I need to do something about this.
Pause just for a second.
With this secret.
Earlier you had said that he sent that DiNardo took the report from the gentleman and from the alleged victim, third victim, and that he said that he would do the process, and you said that he sent it to a lay board.
Yes, I'm sorry. Okay, what's the Dallas Charter, which was created in 2002, requires the protocol for sexual abuse allegations for dioceses in the United States is that they remove the priest immediately from ministry, they contact the police, and they also have a lay board, which is a board that's set up by the diocese that is lay members within the board, which are not priests, which are not deacons. They're lay people that are part of the diocese, and they're supposed to review the case and determine whether it's credible or not. If it's credible, they would remove the priest. If they determine it's not credible, then they allow the priest to continue in his ministry as if nothing had happened. And so that was supposed to be the next step. When the third victim contacted me and we talked about it, I convinced him that that's probably not the right answer. He should contact the police. He told me that the diocese had already told him that he contacted the police. They had contacted the police. And so I recommended that he follow up on that. He contacted the Houston Police Department. They knew nothing about the allegation. He contacted CPS. They knew nothing about the allegation. And we talked, and basically he decided that he was going to contact the CONROE Police Department. And so that's what he did. Well, so he contacted the CONROE Police Department. He did not know this, but the female victim had gone to the CONROE Police Department about a week prior to that.
This would have been the second victim.
Yeah, the second victim, the girl who had been abused in 2001. She had finally come to the realization that the statute of limitations had not expired on her case, and she had been watching the news about the Pennsylvania report and things that are going where it was all in the news, and she felt like she needed to do something. So she had already gone to the CONROE Police Department. So
am I understanding that she went to the church said the statute of limitation was without, so she went home and did nothing. So she thought that she had exhausted her resources to try to find a remedy. Is that what?
Yes.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
Okay. So now we were at the point where the second victim, unbeknownst and the unknowing that the third victim was also going to report it at these two people within a week of each other, but not acting together, both reported it to Montgomery County. Is that correct? Or Conroe Police Department?
Yeah, the Conroe Police Department. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So the CONROE Police Department launched an investigation. And I want to commend the CONROE Police Department. They have done an outstanding job investigating this case. And especially the district attorney there, Brett Ligon, he has followed up on all the leads, and you've seen since the case is open, they've raided Sacred Heart, they've raided St. John Fisher, which is where Rosa Lopez was at. They've also raided the Shalom Center, and then they ended up raiding the diocese and going after their secret archives.
And when you say raiding, let's tell me. Can you tell me more about what you mean by raiding?
Well, basically, the police show up unknown to the diocese and requested all their requests.
Gotcha. So basically, they would be executing search warrants.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
And and Brett Ligon he's actually a practicing Catholic. So
really?
For him to step out and say, look, this is wrong, I commend the man. He's trying to do what's right and trying to follow up on and we need to end this sexual abuse. This has got to stop. And the only way we're going to do that is by people like Brett Ligon stepping out and doing the right thing and following up on these issues. Okay, so the CONROE Police Department starts investigating. Well, in late August, Rosa Lopez was finally removed from his ministry, and he was at St. John Fisher down in Rosenberg. And my understanding is that the parish there, the people who went to that parish, they were told that he was on an extended retreat. Okay, so let's talk about the Dallas Charter. The Dallas Charter, per the Dallas Charter, Cardinal DiNardo should have removed him back in June when the third allegation was made. He did not do that. He should have removed him in August 10th.
Okay, so let me get you to pause again. I apologize I jump in here, but this is so important, and I feel like this is a big deal. When you say the Dallas Charter, what are we talking about?
This is all the bishops got together in 2002 after the Boston situation had happened and the scandal broke, and the Catholic Church had realized that their process wasn't working and they needed to change it. So they went in and changed it, and that's where the Dallas Charter came from. Prior to the Dallas Charter, what they would do is get him psychoanalyzed, get the priest who had been accused psychoanalyzed, and if he was determined to be a pedophile by the psychiatrist, he was removed from, or he was sent to treatment, and then once he was treated and found to be cured, he was put back in ministry. Or if he was found not to be a pedophile, he was put back in ministry. That was their process. They found that wasn't working. Okay, so they put together the Dallas Charter, and it was because they called it the Dallas Charter because all the bishops in the U.S. got together in Dallas, and that's where the charter came from. And it's a protocol essentially.
Okay. So was the Dallas Charter specifically dealing with sexual abuse?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so this is I want to just make if I can. It's kind of like seeing the forest seeing the trees and not seeing the forest. It seems like while there has been a lot of reports, and especially this one hitting home with this guy at Sacred Heart and these other places, but all over the country, it seems like there is a wave of people priests being exposed. So it seems to me that if so many people are being exposed, that you have to get your higher ups to meet in a city so they can figure out a way to get their arms around it. That's a problem.
It's a huge problem, and it still hasn't been addressed. And that is the root of the problem. Okay, every time you dig, every time either the press or civil authorities dig, they find this kind of filth. You found in Boston, they had over 100 pedophile priests because the Boston Globe started digging, and they were able to identify over 100 pedophile priests that were in that diocese. In Pennsylvania, the Attorney General there went into 6 dioceses and found 300 pedophile priests and over 1,000 victims. Most recently, Illinois started digging. Those numbers roll off your tongue like they're just a chart. But I'm trying to wrap my head around
if you had to line up 300 guys in their professional priest costume down a street. That's a long block of individuals.
Yes, it is.
And that's who they found just in the state of Pennsylvania.
Yes, exactly. Now, and so the point I'm trying to make here is every time you dig, every time you look, you find this kind of thing. And that's what I would love for the state of Texas to do the same thing. I cannot get Ken Paxton interested in doing this. I've written letters to him. I've had people part of my organization write letters to him. I went to my state representative, Dan Huberty, asked him for help. I can't get anybody to budge. They're not interested in doing this. That's why I want to commend, again, Brett Ligon, for doing this. He actually started digging, and he found, if you look at the discovery that was made public from the raid on the diocese, the amount of records that he found there, we're gonna hear.
That was the November 28th raid, I believe.
Yes,
yep.
Yes. There's going to be so much filth that they found there that it's going to be just disgusting. And what you're going to see is that the church is hiding things. Okay, and you know the Catholic, the diocese here in Houston, there are 2 priests and this was reported on CBS News. There are 2 priests here that have been credibly accused of sexual abuse. That's my word, credibly. Okay, that's not the Catholic Church's word. They don't believe it's credible. But there were 2 victims. There are victims of 2 priests here. Father Keller up in Prince of Peace on 249, and Father Brinkman out in Baytown. Both these guys, the victims, they actually interviewed the victims on the air and made the story. And the diocese here in Houston has done nothing about it. They've allowed these guys to continue in their ministry.
Wait. More. Are they being paid?
Yes, of course they're being paid.
Oh, okay.
So let me make a point here.
Yes.
So Rosa Lopez has been accused by 2 people. There's others. He's being charged for by 2 people, right? The 2 victims we talked about, 1998, 2001. He has the 1992 victim as well. That's not part of the criminal case right now. And then there's others that are out there. I've talked to at least one other that was abused by this man, and he is still being paid. Okay, that's the problem here. These Catholics who go to church and give their money to this church are paying for this individual. Okay, and they're also paying to house him. They're also paying for his legal fees. People need to realize what's going on here and quit funding this filth.
So am I correct? Just understanding you that when you say the church is paying for it, that it's by their what they're cutting checks for legal fees and that sort of thing?
That money is coming somewhere from within the church. Okay, that is, this guy is not, this lawyer is not doing this pro bono. They're typically, the Catholic Church will hire the best lawyers in town, and I've had personal experience with this up in Louisville, Kentucky, where my abuser was. They had the same lawyer. He's the best defense attorney in town, and this is in Louisville, Kentucky. He has been involved in every pedophile priest case that they've had up there. And you can't tell me this guy's doing it pro bono. The church is paying for this. People need to wake up and realize what's going on here. I have a friend who is her uncle was a priest, and she had power of attorney to this priest, and she found his pay stub, and there was a amount of money being taken out of his paycheck and being put over in this legal fund to help fund these pedophile priests.
So you're saying that the priest kind of keep like a secret kitty of a legal fund in case they need legal help, and that's so basic. Wow.
So then the church can say, we're not involved in this. Now this is in Louisville. I don't know how they're doing it here in Houston. I don't have the contacts here in Houston, but it's people need to realize what's going on here. The Catholic Church is also funding lobbyists to try to keep the statute of limitations in their favor. They're concerned about these states changing statute of limitations and then actually being held accountable for what's happened here. So they have lobbied millions of dollars to keep the statute of limitations from changing. It's disgusting.
So wait, they're taking money out of the offering plate and trying to change the rules so that people who has basically molested the congregation's children can get out of what prosecution because time has gone by?
Absolutely.
And they're hiring. Wow, unbelievable. Do you think that the average Catholic do you think that the average, what do they call them, parishioner? I don't know, whatever. But does the average person on the Catholic pew know that that their money's going to such causes?
I doubt it. They do a good job of hiding it, but all you got to do is go out and Google it and do research. It's out there. It's in the public record, but it's, I doubt it that most Catholics know about this. Now, every Catholic I talk to knows about it because I make sure they do, because it's a personal choice. And I also want to say that I have nothing against the Catholic faith. My mother's a practicing Catholic. I love her to death, and she has every right to be a Catholic, and your spirituality is between you and God, and I would never criticize that. This right. Battle that I'm fighting is against the hierarchy and how they've handled this, because we got to stop allowing them to rape our children. That's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, man.
And, and taking away their innocence, and people need to also recognize that it takes years for people to recover from that. I was sexually abused 45 years ago, and I'm still dealing with it. You never recover, and my innocence was taken away from me.
Was that at the hands of a priest?
Yes. And so, we talk about pay, and my priest, my perpetrator, is sitting in prison right now. He's been convicted twice by me and another. There was another victim that came forward. Twice convicted pedophile. He is still drawing a check from the church. He's still a priest.
Unbelievable.
It is. It is.
Okay. So, okay. This is the thing. I look at legal matters and I start thinking about what rises to the threshold of conspiracy. But when you have not a few, not 10, not 20, not even 100, but hundreds that they caught in one state, and they have at least 1,000 victims that came forward from the ones they caught, and then they hire lobbyists, and then they have cardinal meetings, and then they have like slush funds. I mean, and pretty soon this looks like a culture. I mean, it's not just a bunch of one-off individual things.
That's the problem here, is the culture. That's what needs to change, and it starts in the seminaries. I've read numerous books about the way the seminaries are run. There's a lot of sexual misconduct that's happening in those seminaries, and you're getting these 12, 13-year-old boys coming in there, and they're being groomed and raped by the older seminaries, and it builds on the culture, and that's what we're dealing with here. And the fact that there's so much secrecy about it. They take these vows of obedience that they're required to do what their superiors tell them to do. And in canon law, it says that you will protect the church first. They've got it wrong. Okay, I could care less about the church. What about the victims, for God's sake? That's who they should be protecting.
Right. Okay, so in your experience, so you were a Catholic for a large part or the early part of your life. Is that right?
Yes, I was raised Catholic. I come from a large Catholic family. I had 7 brothers and sisters, and I went all Catholic grade school and high school. I am no longer a Catholic. I cannot deal with it anymore. Once I realized, once I came to terms with what had happened to me, and I've tried to deal with the Catholic Church. I've been dealing with the Catholic Church since 2001, and I honestly, one of the most disappointing things I experienced was I was raised Catholic. I was told that I was part of the flock, and that that I was one of God's children, and I expected the Catholic Church to do the right thing and protect me. When I went to them in 2001, I expected them to stand up and say, "Okay, we're going to take care of this. We're going to address this issue." Instead, I was given the runaround. I was told my accusation was incredible. I was basically told to go away. And they did nothing. They did absolutely nothing, and it's disgusting. And it's the biggest disappointments I've ever had. Is I expected more from them, and I didn't get it.
Michael, did you have to see your abuser after the fact over and over again? I mean, did you guys have reason to see each other?
Yeah, actually, I was abused when I was 10 years old. He taught at a high school I went to, and I was in his class. And I actually, one of the stories I like to tell is there was one day in class. I was a troubled kid. I'll be honest with you. I was abusing drugs. I was abusing alcohol. I did not understand what had happened to me, because you can imagine a 10-year-old boy being molested by a priest. And you had been told that this man was God, and when he basically he was closer to God than you were, and when he stood on the altar, he was actually God. And so here's God molesting you, and it really messes with you, okay? And I was having a hard time dealing with it, especially going through puberty and the sexuality behind it and everything else. It really messed with me. So I'm obviously a troubled kid, and I'm in the back of his class, and me and one of my buddies are sitting back there cracking up or messing around, and he stops the class in the middle, and he calls me out. He says, "Norris, you and Gallagher one day, you guys are going to end up in prison." And the whole class, they all laughed and pointed at me and stuff, and so I love telling that story because, he's in prison now. He's the one that ended up in prison. I didn't. I made it. I'm on the other side now. I'm a productive person in society. He's the one who's sitting in prison.
Funny how the worm turns.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so first of all, man, it's not my place to even apologize. I can't say anything, but I'm genuinely sorry that episode of your life happened. So, but I can see how you would want to try to keep it from happening to anyone else ever. So let me ask you this. So we are seeing an epidemic of this stuff coming out. The church it seems like they have a culture of this. Maybe they're trying to get their arms around it, but there also seems to be a culture of trying to cover it up as opposed to dealing with it. Is that kind of your understanding, or?
That is the problem. They basically, instead of trying to address the issue and deal with the issue, they try to sweep it under the rug and they try to hide it because they're more interested in protecting the sanctity of the church. That's the problem right there. They need to give that up, in my opinion. They need, they would gain so much trust and so much respect if they would start standing up and saying, "No, you're a pedophile." Here at work, I'm in private industry. If one of my employees sexually molests someone, not only they don't even have to be at work, but we find out they do it outside of work, they're going to be escorted out. We're not going to have nothing to do with these people.
Right.
Why do they treat it differently? I don't get it. I don't understand it.
Can you imagine? So let me ask you this: what would happen at your job in private industry if you found out that someone was accused not once, not twice, but 3 times of molesting people at work in the service of his job?
They would be walked out the door that day, and they would be escorted to the police as well.
That is exactly what I think, and it's so. That's amazing. Okay, so I know this rabbit hole is deep and dark, and we could slide all the way down it. But for the sake of brevity, and I appreciate your time, we've got De La Rosa. He's been accused, and he's going to court this week. What do you think at the end happens to this man?
I hope he ends up in prison. I hope to God that's the only safe place for him because people like this are sick. And he needs to be in prison, and he needs to be on predator lists, sexual predator lists. We need to keep him away from our children. That's the problem here. He's been accused by multiple people. There's something to the story, and so I hope he is found guilty. And but there's due process here. He needs to go through his trial. He needs to be given a fair chance.
Absolutely.
But in the end, I hope there's justice served because I know I've talked to 4 of the victims. Their lives were changed forever, because of what this man did to them. There's a couple of them that are struggling right now, and so he doesn't deserve much, And typically, what you see is these guys when they go to prison, they have their own justice system there, and so I would feel for Rosa Lopez if he does end up in prison because it may not be pretty.
I suspect you're probably right, and karma's funny like that. Let me just kind of sum this. Right now, you've got we've had. I think about the Catholics. I think about the people out there that are good Catholics that go and donate and give money and all this kind of thing. We see them at protests for the death penalty at the prisons. We see them for at protests at abortion clinics and that sort of thing. What has been your response with any organized response from the Catholic Church regarding these types of cases?
You don't see there very rarely do you see the Catholics showing up to stand up for the victims. A lot of times they'll show up for the priest, and so I would like to see that change. There are a lot of good Catholics out there. They've got to be appalled by what's going on. It's time to stand up, and I'd love to see them show up at the courthouse. I'll be there at 1:30 on Thursday afternoon at the CONROE courthouse. Let's stand up and Rosa Lopez needs to know that hey, we're not going to put up with this.
Yeah,
this is he deserves to be handled properly, and so yeah, it would be great to see some Catholics show up and protest there and say hey, this is enough.
Absolutely.
Ultimately, let me say one more thing. Ultimately, I believe the only way the Catholic Church will ever change is if the people sitting in the pews make them change. They're not. The hierarchy isn't going to be able to do it. Because there's blood. There's blood on every bishop, archbishop, cardinal, and pope. The pope even had blood on his hands. There's stories about him brushing this under the rug, and when he was a bishop down in down in Argentina. So he's got blood on his hands as well. They all have blood on their hands. And so the Blade people need to stand up and take the church back.
Well, Michael, I want to thank you very much for taking a minute speaking with me today. In the future, as this case develops, I would love it if we could chat again.
Absolutely.
And I suspect that I will see you at the courthouse on Thursday at 1. To Michael Norris from SNAP for that great interview. I really appreciate it, Michael. He did a great job at laying out the big picture of what is, I hate to use the word, but I think it's accurate, systemically wrong within the Catholic Church right now regarding priest and sexual abuse. What I want to do in this final segment is kind of bring this home. We've talked a lot about the big picture, and I want to now look at specifically what De La Rosa Lopez is being charged with, and in doing that, I am going to just simply read you the complaint as it's filed by the state of Texas, more specifically the Montgomery County DA's office, and I'm going to finish that out after I get finished reading the complaint with you. I'm going to let you listen to an interview that I had earlier with Tyler Dunman, who is with the Montgomery County DA's office. So we'll get right into it. This basically, I'm just reading verbatim. I'm going to put it up there so you can see what I'm reading. This is page 1 of the state of Texas complaint. It's the affidavit for a warrant of arrest. Says, before me, the undersigned authority on this day personally appeared Joe McGrew, who, after being by me duly sworn on the oath, deposes and says that he has good reason to believe and does believe, and charged that heretofore, to wit, on or about April 9th, 2000, and before the making and filming of this the making and filing of this complaint in the county of Montgomery and state of Texas, Manuel Antonio La Rosa Lopez, the defendant, did then and there, with the intent to arouse and gratify the sexual desire of Manuel La Rosa Lopez, engage in sexual contact by touching the genitals of, and they use initials here, MV, a child younger than 17 years of age, with the defendant's sexual organ. Affiant Joe McGrew is a certified Texas peace officer employed by CONROE Police Department. Based on his own investigation and review of the offense report, and they give the numbers, determined the following facts. On 8/27 of 2018, they filed a report. It was filed by J.H. This is another person filing a complaint. An adult who reported being sexually abused while he was a child under the age of 17. In the report, J.H. states that during 1998 through 2000, he was a sacrosanct at the Sacred Heart Catholic Church under Father Manuel La Rosa Lopez, the defendant. J.H. stated that all during this time, as sacrosanct, La Rosa began touching him and making intimate gestures, which increased in frequency and severity. These gestures culminated on or before 10/5/99, when La Rosa called J.H. into his sacristy to move some items from the office to La Rosa's living quarters. Once in the living quarters, La Rosa showed photographs to J.H. which depicted partially naked men from La Rosa Seminary. La Rosa sat J.H. on the bed for this. J.H. attempted to leave when he saw the photos, but La Rosa physically prohibited him from leaving. La Rosa began, quote, fingering J.H. He unbuttoned J.H.'s pants, reached inside his pants, and fondled J.H.'s penis and his anus with La Rosa's, man. I'm going to read it. I thought about not, but I'm going to read it. He unbuttoned J.H.'s pants, reached inside J.H.'s pants, and fondled J.H.'s penis and anus with La Rosa's hands and fingers. The incident ended when J.H.'s sister arrived to pick him up and blew her car horn in the parking lot. La Rosa allowed J.H. to leave. J.H. stated that he was still under the age of 17 when this incident occurred. Sacred Heart Catholic Church is known by affiant to be within the jurisdictional limits of Montgomery County, Texas. Okay, next page. Second page of the complaint goes like this. J.H. stated that the immediate motivation for his report is the continuing news coverage of the Catholic sex scandal. J.H. stated that about 1 year ago he contacted his local parish, who put him into contact with the Galveston-Houston Archdiocese Victims Assistance Coordinator. He stated that the coordinator is Sister Maureen O'Connell. This led J.H. being J.H. being flown from his current residence to Houston, and his being interviewed by Sister O'Connell and Cardinal DiNardo. This meeting occurred on 8/8/18. As a result of this meeting, the church offered to provide J.H. with psychological counseling. The church continues to be in contact with J.H. regarding their investigation. J.H. stated that Sister O'Connell told him that reports had been filed with CONROE Police Department and Child Protective Services. After a thorough search for these records, affiant has been unable to locate any such reporting. Affiant asked J.H. if he was aware of any other possible victims. J.H. identified his successor as a sacrosanct and referred to as J.H.2. He also identified another family, which is just identified as LAA. On 8/29/18, there was a report, and they give the number. It was filed by MV, an adult who reported being sexually abused as a child while under the age of 17. MV stated that in 2000, she was attending Sacred Heart Catholic Church located in Conroe, Texas, Montgomery County, Texas. She stated that at that time, Father Manuel La Rosa Lopez was her confessor. MV stated that early in the year, La Rosa began what she described as a, quote, grooming behavior, unquote. MV stated this was terminology used by her therapist. She stated that the behavior consisted of heavy petting and kissing. This behavior culminated on or about 4/9/2000 when, after a confession in his office, La Rosa took off his white collar and began kissing MV and pressing his erect penis into her quote-unquote crotch. This was clarified to mean her sexual organ. At that time, La Rosa told her, I have to wait, this is quote, I have to wait until you're 16 because I'm trying to fuck you. Then, on or about 4/11/2000, following a practice for a Passion of the Christ play, MV and La Rosa were alone in the church kitchen. MV stated that, it says MV, but I think they meant to put La Rosa began fondling her and reached underneath her skirt and her bra to touch her breasts with his hands. MV stated that she believed she was in a romantic relationship with La Rosa and recorded her tryst in her diary. She used the code name Felipe to refer to him. MV stated that her father had began reading her diary and was investigating who Felipe could be. Her father determined that Felipe was, in fact, La Rosa and confronted MV about it, then made a report to the church. This report resulted in visits from the head priest, Father Dave Kennedy, now deceased, and then Bishop Joseph Fiorenza. The result of these meetings is that La Rosa was transferred away from the Sacred Heart, and MV's father told MV never to speak of it again. Several months later, MV's whole family moved to Israel. In 2010, MV had returned to Conroe and was married. MV stated that she observed in a Catholic newspaper that La Rosa had received a promotion and was in fact assigned his own church in Richmond, Texas. This motivated MV to follow up with the Catholic Church, and we're going to go into page 3 here. All right, starting page 3. with the Catholic Church, and she contacted the Galveston-Houston Diocese, which put her in contact with Sister Maureen O'Connell. MV was interviewed by Sister O'Connell and Cardinal DiNardo. MV was advised that La Rosa had been sent to a mental institution and was then placed in an administrative position from which she had no contact with children or teenagers. Affiant has verified through church media that La Rosa is the priest of St. John the Fisher Church in Richmond, Texas. MV stated that she decided to make a police report because of the perceived duplicity of Cardinal DiNardo regarding his public statements regarding the recent priest scandals and the failure of the church, or the church's failure to adequately protect children from La Rosa. Affiant asked MV about the identity of any other potential victims of La Rosa. MV identified another boy who was the sacrosanct at Sacred Heart at the time. La Rosa was her confessor. She stated that the boy spent a lot of time with La Rosa, then identified him by name as JH2. She further identified the boys of the El La family. Affiant investigated any ties between MV and JH through social media searches and questioning, and has determined no link between the two victims. Both victims independently cite the current media attention regarding the indictments of priests in Pennsylvania as partial motivators for coming forward at this time. Given the facts of the case, Affiant believes that Father Manuel La Rosa, on or about 4/9/2000 in the county Montgomery, Texas, committed the offense of indecency with a child by contact, by then and there, with intent to arouse and gratify the sexual desire of the defendant by touching the genitals of MV, a child younger than 17 years of age, with the defendant's sexual organ, and or by touching the breast of MV. Given the facts of this case, Affiant believes that Father Manuel La Rosa Lopez, on or about 10/5/1999 in Montgomery County, Texas, committed the offense of indecency with a child by contact, by then and there, with intent to arouse and gratify the sexual desire of the defendant, by touching the anus of JH, a child younger than 17 years of age, with the defendant's hand, and or by touching the genitals of JH. And then it was signed. And then the final page, I believe, deals specifically with, it just says the peace officer sworn in. It says that the assistant district attorney is Nancy Herbert. On the 10th day of September, it shows that the magistrate is Phil Grant of the 9th District Court. And on September 10th, 2018, they signed it. The bond was recommended to be $150,000, and that's what the bond amount was. So there you have that. Okay, you have what I have when it comes to the complaint. As promised, we are going to finish out this episode with an interview from Tyler Dunman from the Montgomery County DA's office, and that is coming up now. All right, so I'm on the air with Tyler Dunman of the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office. Tyler, can you tell us real quick what it is you do there, and then a little bit about the case coming up on Thursday?
Yeah, so my official title here is the Special Crimes Bureau Chief, which means that I'm involved in cases, particularly crimes against children or child exploitation here in Montgomery County, supervising some of our teams that specialize in handling those types of cases. And so I've been here at the DA's office for a little over 11 years now. Are you intimately familiar with the details of the case involving the priest and the allegations brought against him? Yes, I am. It's a case that I'm working on with our team here. Thursday, we do have a court setting for Rosa Lopez, who is the priest who's been charged with indecency with a child for two different victims here in Montgomery County. And so we do have a court setting for him on Thursday. It's a pretrial setting. There's usually a multitude of these things as the case is moving through the process. It's probably not something that will be significant at this particular setting. We're still in the early stages of discovery and exchanging information with the defense attorney, things like that, as we move towards a formal indictment that should be coming soon in this process. So we're still early on in the process, and this is just another date for the judge to check in with the parties as well as the defendant as we move along the process.
Got you. So, a couple of questions. When you say a formal indictment, has a grand jury determined that they tell me? I apologize. I'm not a legal guy so much. So could you kind of tell me, is he officially charged, or what's going on with that?
Yeah, he has been charged and arrested through the complaint and information process. So for a felony charge, law enforcement, we can charge someone two ways. They can be charged with complaint information, which is a legal document, an arrest warrant, so to speak, and then, but they can also be just directly indicted by a grand jury. But ultimately, every felony case has to be presented, and to move forward has to be indicted by a grand jury. So even if we choose to file by complaint and information, at some point for us to formally move forward, we do have to present that to a grand jury for indictment. And so we're still in the investigative stages, still gathering evidence from a multitude of entities. Just at the end of last year, we were, running a search warrant at the Archdiocese in Houston. So we're still in the gathering information stage, which will help us work towards presenting the case to grand jury relatively soon.
Gotcha. So a couple of questions. You had touched on the search warrant that you guys did on the diocese. There was a couple other places, the Shalom Center, and I think maybe a couple of churches or something.
Yes, that's right. At the end of last year, we ran search warrants on two different churches: Sacred Heart here in Conroe, Texas, and St. John Fisher's, which is in Fort Bend County, where Rosa Lopez was working at the time he was arrested on these charges. And then those cases, they took us to the Shalom Center here in Montgomery County, where we worked to do a search warrant there, and then the Archdiocese here at the end of the year in Houston.
Are you ruling out additional arrests or investigations on other individuals based on what you've learned in those search warrants?
No, we're not ruling anything out. I mean, it's still an active investigation. We're still running down leads and gathering information, analyzing all of that. So I don't know that there will be other arrests made or other charges, but it's just too early to tell at this point until we get a firm handle on what all we have obtained in this process.
What is your thoughts that there could be other victims out there besides the two that have come forward?
Well, we have had other victims reach out to us in the course of this, and we are investigating some additional allegations. And, of course, we continue to get tips and information from the public as we have along the way. And so, we're working through those to determine what the next steps would be in those investigations.
Tyler, if someone out there is watching this podcast and they say they either themselves or know someone that they think may have suffered at the hands of the priest or others, what is the number, or how should they best get in touch with the DA?
Yeah, I mean, they can call our office at 936-538-7800. They can also reach out to the CONROE Police Department and make a call through their non-emergency line. They can also go on our social media, find us on Facebook, and reach out to us that way. We also have an email address, da.info@mctx.org, where someone can submit information. So there's a multitude of ways to get in touch with us. If anyone has information that they want to come forward, we would encourage them to do so.
Tyler, I certainly appreciate you taking a moment with On the Air. And as this case develops, I hope perhaps if we need a little bit of a clarification, if I can contact you again in the future.
Absolutely. Reach out, and we'll be happy to talk with you.
Okay. Have a great day. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Bye-bye.
Bye. We get what we'll tolerate, and I think that's probably true in our personal life, in our churches, and in our society. If you know someone who you feel like has been affected by this problem. There was a lot of information on the front end of this video, of this podcast, that you can get you in touch with some people that maybe could help. If you feel like this is a problem you'd like to get to work against, there's a lot of ways to get involved. Again, a lot of information early on in the video. If you feel like you want to call somebody, call somebody. If you feel like you want to show up and watch the perp walk in on Thursday, the court actually starts at 1:30. I'm sure that he'll do the perp walk sometime prior to that. So if you want to get up there and let him know what you think about things, you certainly can. Also, the court is a free place, so you're welcome to go in and watch the proceedings in Montgomery County Courthouse. On another note, hey, this is a gloomy, kind of a weird topic. I don't know. In the future, I want to drink wine and eat food and have fun guests and play music and not talk about priests molesting kids. But anyway, if you've made it this far in this podcast, I really appreciate you. No kidding. I really do appreciate you. It's probably been painful to watch a bit. I am learning to fly this airplane at the same time that I'm building it. So, yeah, man, I'm doing the best that I can. I hope that you'll be a part of this as we evolve and become a little bit slicker production here. Budget, equipment, time to mess with budget and equipment, it's all there. But at the end of the day, thanks a lot. I hope that the biggest thing you could do for me, if you would like this video and subscribe to this channel, that would help me immensely. And as I put new stuff out, you'll be the first to know. Anyway, thanks. I'll see you again. Thank you again for tuning in to this episode of On the Air with Eric Thompson. Now get out of here.